To finish off our introductory lesson to redox reactions, which again simply means transfer of electrons from one substance to another, we're going to take a look at oxidizing agents and reducing agents. Those are the last terms you really need to know to have that basic foundation to continue in this unit. So we talked about something being oxidized. Something being oxidized is when a substance loses electrons, and something being reduced is when a substance has gained electrons. So let's analyze this reaction over here. Here we have zinc plus Cu2 plus produces Cu plus zinc 2 plus. So as we can see from this, the copper has gained 2 electrons. So copper gained 2 electrons to become zero charge, which means that copper, Cu2 plus, was reduced. And zinc, on the other hand, zinc would have lost 2 electrons to become zinc 2 plus. So this zinc here was oxidized. Now, what that means is that zinc, to become oxidized, had to give those 2 electrons to the copper. So those 2 electrons that copper gained, they came from zinc. So in a way, you can think of it like this. Zinc was oxidized. How? By reducing copper. So zinc, the one that is oxidized, is known as a reducing agent. It is oxidized by reducing copper, so it's the one that donates the electrons. It is the one that was oxidized. Whereas the one that was reduced, copper, it became reduced by taking electrons from zinc. So copper was reduced, so it is the oxidizing agent. The way it becomes reduced is by oxidizing something. It needs to take electrons away from something in order to get reduced. So the oxidizing agent is the one that accepts electrons, and so that's the one that was reduced in the end. So in our previous example, if we go up here, we know that aluminum was oxidized. So this aluminum here was oxidized. And the silver was reduced. So if you had to classify them in terms of being agents, the one that was oxidized, so the aluminum, that was oxidized because it gave away its electrons to the silver. So that means that the one that was oxidized, this is the reducing agent. Whereas the one that was reduced, on the other hand, that was reduced by taking the electrons from aluminum. So the one that was reduced, the Ag plus, is actually the oxidizing agent. So in our reaction here, we could say that Al solid is our reducing agent, and the AgNO3 is the oxidizing agent, specifically the Ag. So Al is a reducing agent because it was oxidized, and Ag is the oxidizing agent because it was reduced, so it took away electrons away, it oxidized something in the process. So we can say that Al, the aluminum, so this was oxidized, making it the reducing agent. This was reduced, making it the oxidizing agent. So if you have to find agents, reducing and oxidizing agents, your first step would be to find what was oxidized, what was reduced, and then kind of think of it sort of the opposite. The one that was oxidized is the reducing agent, the one that was reduced is the oxidizing agent, because of what they have to do in order to become oxidized and reduced. So in this lesson, we saw a brief introduction to redox reactions, which is a short form for oxidation-reduction reactions, where there's a transfer of electrons. The oxidation involves the loss of electrons, reduction involves the gain of electrons, and the one that is oxidized is a reducing agent. The one that is reduced is the oxidizing agent. To find out what is oxidized and what's reduced, you typically write out a net ionic equation and you look at charges. There's other ways to do it. It's not just ionic equations that can include redox reactions. There's also different reactions we're going to see later on that involve reduction in some way, shape, or form. And we'll see how to classify those. But anyways, you would try to find some system like charges, for example, to see what gained and what lost electrons. Once you find what was oxidized and reduced, you can figure out what your agents were. We learned some tricks, mnemonics, to remember oxidation versus reduction. And again, you can make your own if you like. The sample problems you'll see on the next page, there is an answer key for you to take to reference, but your goal is to be able to classify reactions or separate them into half reactions, classify substances being oxidizing agents, reducing agents, and also determine if something was oxidized or was reduced.